That hard stuff didn't happen until after I graduated. When I was younger, it was something that set me apart in not necessarily a good way.
Tatyana Ali was everywhere in the 90s, but Hollywood had different plans for her.
So, because I've never asked him to hook me up like acting wise. I've always asked for him to hook me up like business wise, like, and more so like advice. Like,
while her Fresh Prince castmates were cashing in on their fame, Tatyana Ali walked away from million-dollar opportunities to pursue something Hollywood considered career suicide.
I use my degree in politics in all of my choices as an actor, all of my choices as a producer. I believe very much in the power of the vote, in the necessity of us fighting to maintain that right.
The decision that saved her soul would cost her everything the industry promised: money, fame, and relevance. So let's get into it. Tatyana Ali's story began with a 4-year-old dragging her mother through the streets of New York, begging to audition for Sesame Street. Most children that age were content playing with toys, but Tatyana had already discovered something that would define her entire existence: the intoxicating power of performance. Her mother, Sonia, a nurse from Panama, had been approached by managers before about her precocious daughter, but always declined. Tatyana was different from other children, constantly telling elaborate stories to neighbors through their chain-link fence, reenacting entire movies from beginning to end for anyone who would listen. The girl who would become Ashley Banks was already performing before she knew what performance meant.
I like to tell stories at 4 because I have like very clear memories of like, we had chain link fences in the backyard, and I used to like talk to the neighbors and tell them stories, like to the point where like my parents would like cry me away and be like, okay, I'm so sorry.
When Tatyana finally convinced her mother to take her to that Sesame Street audition, she walked into a world that would never quite let her go. The show's producers didn't just hire her, they made her a regular performer. At 6 years old, she was sharing screen time with legendary musicians like Herbie Hancock, who used a sample of her voice in his synthesizer demonstrations. The work came easily, almost suspiciously so. While other child actors struggled for years to book their first commercial, Tatyana was landing role after role. Star Search, Broadway productions, guest appearances on major television shows. Opportunities that should have taken decades to achieve were falling into her lap before she turned 10.
Started doing commercials when I was 4. I did Sesame Street. I did a lot of theater in New York, Broadway.
Her parents, Sheriff and Sonia Ali, were nothing like the typical stage parents that populated the entertainment industry. Her father was a retired police officer from Trinidad. Her mother worked as a nurse. They kept their day jobs even as their daughter's career exploded, constantly worrying that she was working too much rather than pushing her to take on more projects. But Tatyana herself was addicted to the work. Each successful audition, each callback, each moment in front of the camera fed something deep inside her that normal childhood experiences couldn't satisfy. When she appeared in the opening segment of Eddie Murphy Raw alongside Samuel L. Jackson, she had no idea she was participating in what would become one of the most successful comedy specials in history. She was just doing what felt natural. The momentum was building toward something larger. Every casting director in New York knew Tatyana Ali's name. Every agent wanted to represent her. By the time she turned 11, the phone call that would change everything was already on its way. A pilot was being developed in Los Angeles, and they needed someone to play the youngest member of a wealthy black family. Someone precocious, talented, and completely comfortable in front of the camera. Tatyana Ali had spent her entire childhood preparing for this moment without even knowing it. The little girl who had begged for her first audition was about to become Ashley Banks, and America was about to fall in love with her. What nobody could predict was how much that love would eventually cost her. The call came while Tatyana was performing in yet another Broadway production, living the kind of life that most child actors only dreamed about. NBC was developing something unusual, a sitcom starring a rapper named Will Smith, and they needed a young actress to play his spoiled cousin, Ashley Banks. The network remembered Tatyana from a failed pilot called Wally and the Valentines, where she had played part of a musical family alongside future stars like Tevin Campbell. Flying from New York to Los Angeles for pilot season was routine for established child actors. But this audition felt different from the moment Tatyana walked into the room. The energy was electric. The chemistry between the potential cast members was immediate. And most importantly, the show had something most Black family sitcoms lacked: genuine authenticity behind the scenes.
I remember my second audition. We had to make up a rap. Quincy Jones was in the room. Thank God I didn't know. I mean, I heard it, thank God I didn't really know who he was.
Quincy Jones sitting in that audition room should have been intimidating, but Tatyana's ignorance was her advantage. She didn't freeze up knowing she was performing for the producer of Thriller. She just did what she always did, told a story, became the character, made the room believe she belonged there. When they asked her to improvise a rap, she didn't hesitate. This was just another performance, another chance to do what she loved most. The pilot process moved faster than anyone expected. NBC ordered the show to series after seeing the chemistry between Will Smith, James Avery, Janet Hubert, Alfonso Ribeiro, Karen Parsons, and Tatyana. What started as a 2-week trip to Los Angeles to shoot a pilot became a 6-year commitment that would define all of their careers.
We came to LA for I think we had 1 or 2 weeks to do a pilot, which was a really short amount of time. But the chemistry was just instant with everyone. And then that was it.
The show's early success caught everyone off guard. Hip-hop was barely present on television in 1990. The idea of a rapper starring in a network sitcom seemed like an experiment that could easily fail. But The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air tapped into something the viewing public was hungry for: authentic Black family dynamics, real conversations about race and class, and characters who felt like people you might actually know.
Ashley, Hillary just lost her fiancé. She could use a little sisterly comfort.
For Tatyana, the transition from New York theater to Los Angeles television was seamless. She was still doing what she had always done: performing, telling stories, becoming someone else for the camera. The difference was that now millions of people were watching her do it every week, and Ashley Banks was becoming one of the most recognizable characters on television. Her parents slowly began relocating the entire family to California as it became clear that the Fresh Prince wasn't just a temporary job. Tatyana's 2 younger sisters, Anastasia and Kimberly, enrolled in Los Angeles schools. Her parents maintained their cautious approach to their daughter's career, always worried about her well-being rather than focusing on the money and opportunities that were pouring in. But something was happening to Tatyana that nobody anticipated. America was falling in love with Ashley Banks, but they were also watching Tatyana Ali grow up in real time. Every season, every episode, every appearance was being preserved forever. The adorable 11-year-old who had won the audition was becoming a teenager in front of the entire country, and that transformation would soon present challenges that no amount of early success could have prepared her for. America watched Tatyana Ali transform from an adorable 11-year-old into a beautiful young woman, and that transformation created expectations nobody had prepared her for. Every week, millions of viewers tuned in to see Ashley Banks evolve from the spoiled baby of the family into something more complex, and they began to expect the same evolution from Tatyana herself.
Daddy, I love him!
The show's writers started incorporating Tatyana's real musical talent into Ashley's character arc. When she sang Aretha Franklin's Respect in one episode, The audience response was overwhelming. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know when Tatyana Ali, the singer, would emerge from Ashley Banks, the character. Will Smith himself began encouraging her to consider music seriously, seeing something in her performances that reminded him of his own crossover from rap to acting.
After Fresh Prince, right during the end, we started recording, and then that whole year, a couple years after, that's when I started to put out music, and that's when we also did music together.
But the pressure of growing up on television was creating problems that the show's success couldn't solve. Tatyana was experiencing the same identity confusion that affects most teenagers, except her confusion was being broadcast to millions of people every week. She was trying to figure out who she was outside of Ashley Banks, but the character had become so popular that separating herself from it seemed impossible. The racial dynamics of her appearance were particularly complicated. Tatyana's mixed heritage, her Indo-Trinidadian father and Afro-Panamanian mother, had given her features that some people labeled as good hair, and others criticized as not authentically black enough. The comments followed her everywhere, creating a constant awareness that her appearance was being scrutinized and categorized in ways that had nothing to do with her acting ability.
I grew up wanting hair. I grew up wanting to be able to twist my hair and wanting to be able to wear my hair like my mom did and my aunts did, and because I wanted to be like them. I didn't want to be different.
The success of The Fresh Prince had made everyone associated with the show incredibly wealthy. But Tatyana's parents handled their daughter's earnings differently than most stage parents. Instead of viewing her as the family's primary income source, they maintained their own careers and put her money aside for her future. This financial security would prove crucial for the decision that was coming. As the show entered its final seasons, Tatyana was facing the choice that destroys most child actors: continue riding the wave of television success, or risk everything to pursue something that might make her happier in the long run.
During my talk was James Avery. He played my father on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He played Uncle Phil. And he was of the kind of Paul Robeson tradition. He believed that artistry and activism went hand in hand. And I used my degree in politics in all of my choices.
Most young performers choose the sure thing, the steady paychecks, the continued fame. But Tatyana Ali was about to make a decision that would shock Hollywood and effectively end her career as America knew it. The producers were already developing spin-offs, music executives were offering recording contracts, and movie studios were interested in starring vehicles for Ashley Banks. Everything was set up for Tatyana to seamlessly transition from child star to adult entertainer, following the path that had worked for so many others. Instead, she chose something that most people in Hollywood considered career suicide. She decided to go to college. Not just any college, but Harvard University, where she would study African American studies and government.
Somebody who took it upon himself to share some wisdom with me. And he slid me a list, and Harvard was one of the colleges on that list. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have known that I could apply there.
The decision would take her away from Los Angeles, away from the entertainment industry, and away from the momentum that had been building her entire life. The acceptance letter from Harvard University arrived like a bomb in Tatyana's life. While other Fresh Prince cast members were planning their post-show careers in entertainment, Tatyana was secretly preparing to walk away from Hollywood entirely. She had been accepted to one of the most prestigious universities in the world, and she was going to attend classes like a normal 18-year-old student. The decision baffled everyone around her. Agents couldn't understand why she would abandon the momentum from 6 years of television success. Managers warned her that Hollywood had a short memory, and that taking even a year off could destroy her career permanently. Music executives who had been courting her for recording contracts suddenly went quiet. unwilling to invest in someone who might disappear for 4 years.
No, I've actually produced a lot, and so I've produced television and web stuff, and Will's been a real mentor in that sense.
Will Smith supported her decision, understanding better than most the importance of having something beyond entertainment to fall back on. But even he couldn't predict how dramatically the industry would change during her absence, or how difficult it would be for her to find her place again once she returned. The transition from Ashley Banks to Harvard freshman was more jarring than anyone anticipated. Tatyana had spent her entire life being recognized, being special, being the center of attention. At Harvard, she was just another student trying to fit in, except that everyone knew who she was and had expectations about who she should be. The alienation was immediate and overwhelming. Students didn't know how to approach her. Some assumed she was arrogant or thought she was better than everyone else. Others were intimidated by her celebrity status. Most just weren't sure how to treat someone who had been on television for 6 years as if she were a normal college freshman. Tatyana's studies in African American studies and government opened her mind to perspectives she had never considered during her entertainment career. She was learning about structural racism, political theory, and social justice in ways that went far beyond anything she had experienced on television. The education was transformative, but it was also creating distance between her and the industry she had left behind.
I use my degree in politics in all of my choices as an actor, all of my choices as a producer. I believe very much in the power of the vote, in the necessity of us fighting to maintain that right.
Meanwhile, Hollywood was moving on without her. The late 1990s and early 2000s were crucial years for young black actresses. Roles that might have gone to Tatyana were being filled by other performers who had remained available and visible. The industry that had once courted her was no longer holding space for her return. Her music career provided a brief bridge between her old life and new one. Kiss the Sky, her debut album released in 1998, went gold and spawned hit singles like Daydreamin' and Boy You Knock Me Out.
There's no way I could let go of all these dreams and hopes, anxiety.
She toured with NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys, performing for thousands of screaming fans who still remembered Ashley Banks.
I was in, where was it? I think it was Amsterdam. And Backstreet Boys had a concert in the round. Their stage was round and the audience was all over. So the opening act, we had to kind of come through the crowd to get to the stage.
But even her musical success felt disconnected from who she was becoming at Harvard. The songs had been recorded before she left for college, when she was still thinking like a teenage entertainer, rather than a young woman discovering her intellectual and political interests. The disconnect between her public image and her private growth was becoming impossible to ignore. By her senior year, Tatyana realized she had successfully accomplished something that most child actors never manage. She had created a life outside of entertainment. She had real friends who knew her as a person rather than a character. She had academic interests that excited her more than most acting roles ever had. She had developed a sense of herself that wasn't dependent on public approval or industry validation. The question now was whether any of that would matter when she tried to return to Hollywood as an adult performer. Tatyana Ali graduated from Harvard in 2002 with a degree in African American Studies and Government, expecting to resume her entertainment career where she had left it. What she discovered instead was an industry that had moved on without her, and a Hollywood that no longer had a place for who she had become. The 4 years she had spent in Cambridge might as well have been 40 years in entertainment time. The casting directors who had known her as Ashley Banks were now working with a completely different generation of young actresses. The agents who had once courted her had filled their rosters with performers who had remained visible and available throughout the early 2000s. More fundamentally, Tatyana herself had changed in ways that made her previous career path impossible to resume. Her Harvard education had politicized her, given her perspectives on race, class, and social justice that made the typical roles offered to young Black actresses feel hollow and degrading. She was no longer willing to smile and be grateful for any opportunity that came her way.
That hard stuff didn't happen until after I graduated college.
The entertainment industry had also evolved during her absence in ways that worked against her. The late 1990s explosion of teen pop and young adult marketing had created different expectations for young performers. Audiences wanted stars who were constantly present on social media, in gossip columns, and at industry events. Tatyana's 4-year disappearance had made her seem irrelevant to the demographics that drove entertainment marketing. The roles that were offered to her reflected this new reality. Instead of starring vehicles or major supporting parts, she was being pitched guest appearances on television shows and small roles in direct-to-video movies. The industry was treating her like a former child star making a comeback, rather than a serious actress with legitimate training and experience. Her relationship with Will Smith became a source of complicated pride during this period. Smith had successfully transitioned from rapper to television star to movie superstar, becoming one of the most bankable actors in Hollywood. He offered to help Tatyana navigate her return to the industry, but she was too proud to ask for the kind of assistance that might have fast-tracked her career.
I guess so, because I've never asked him to hook me up like acting-wise. I've always asked for him to hook me up like business-wise, like, and more so like advice.
This independence was admirable, but professionally destructive. Hollywood operates on relationships and connections, and refusing to leverage her most valuable industry relationship meant starting over from scratch in an industry that values momentum above almost everything else. The few projects she did book during this period reflected her reduced status in the industry. Soap opera work on The Young and the Restless, guest appearances on various television shows, and small roles in films that went straight to cable or DVD. Each credit was a reminder of how far she had fallen from the heights of Fresh Prince success. But Tatyana was also discovering something that most former child stars never experience. She was happier outside of the spotlight than she had ever been within it. Her Harvard education had given her interests and perspectives that made the entertainment industry's obsessions seem trivial. She was beginning to understand that choosing education over fame hadn't just cost her career opportunities. It had saved her from a life that might have destroyed her sense of self. The question was whether she could build a sustainable career that honored both her entertainment background and her intellectual growth, or whether she would have to choose between personal fulfillment and professional success. The entertainment industry's message to Tatyana Ali was becoming clear: play the game or disappear entirely. Every casting session, every meeting with agents and managers, every conversation about potential projects came with the same underlying expectation: that she would be grateful for whatever scraps were offered and perform the role of the comeback story rather than demand to be treated as a serious actress. Her attempts to produce her own content revealed just how completely the industry had written her off. Projects that should have attracted financing based on her name recognition and proven track record were met with indifference. The Fresh Prince connection that had once been her greatest asset was now seen as a liability, evidence that she was trapped in the past rather than relevant to contemporary audiences. The web series Buppies, which she produced and starred in for BET, should have been a breakthrough moment.
In 1 month, I lost the two most important things in my life. First, my beloved father passed away.
See, Quincy's father was a celebrity, so...
The show dealt with young Black professionals navigating love and career challenges in ways that reflected Tatyana's own post-Harvard experiences. But the series struggled to find its audience and was canceled after 2 seasons, reinforcing the industry perception that she couldn't carry a project as an adult performer. Meanwhile, her former Fresh Prince castmates were experiencing varying degrees of continued success. Will Smith was conquering Hollywood as an action star and producer.
They thought the spirit of the panther died with our king. They were wrong. I am not here to replace a legend. I'm here to protect his legacy with blood.
Alfonso Ribeiro was transitioning into hosting and reality television.
You know what? It is incredibly exciting. I was a fan of the show throughout all these years. It's a show that I would sit with my kids and watch.
Even the supporting players were finding ways to remain visible and employed. Tatyana's choice to pursue education and personal growth had isolated her from the professional networks that were sustaining her former colleagues. The soap opera work on The Young and the Restless provided steady income, but reinforced her status as a former star grateful for any opportunity.
You like working on Young and the Restless?
I love it. It's so much fun. That's why I'm really here to support my cast members. And Brighton McClurry, I play his girlfriend. I play opposite him all the time. He's nominated, so...
Playing Roxanne for 6 years was professional survival rather than artistic fulfillment, the kind of role that pays the bills while slowly eroding the performer's sense of their own potential. Her marriage to Dr. Vaughn Raspberry in 2016 represented a different kind of success story. Meeting an English professor at Stanford University through eHarmony suggested that she had found happiness and intellectual partnership outside of the entertainment world. Their relationship was built on shared academic interests and values rather than industry connections and career advancement.
I liked how slow it was. Like, we were able to write to each other for months, for a long time. What was surprising to me was I still had a feeling.
Motherhood further complicated her relationship with the entertainment industry. Raising 2 sons while trying to maintain any kind of acting career required compromises that male performers rarely had to consider. The industry's expectation that she would be constantly available for auditions and projects conflicted with her priorities as a parent and wife. But the most painful realization was that her Harvard education, which had given her so much personally, had also made her unemployable for many of the roles she was offered. Casting directors wanted the Ashley Banks they remembered.
Oh, Kevin, I'll see you tomorrow to do homework. I mean, if you want to.
Sure. I mean, if you want to.
Her knowledge of African American history and government made her critical of scripts and storylines that reinforced harmful stereotypes. But that critical thinking was seen as difficult behavior rather than professional integrity. The entertainment industry had taught Tatyana Ali a harsh lesson. Authenticity and commercial success were often mutually exclusive, especially for Black actresses who refused to stay within prescribed boundaries. She could be Ashley Banks forever, or she could be herself, but the industry wasn't interested in finding ways for her to do both. Tatyana Ali stopped chasing her old career and started building a new life. Instead of fighting for major roles that never materialized, she began accepting smaller projects that aligned with her values and allowed her to maintain the family life she had chosen. Lifetime movies, Hallmark films, and guest appearances on television shows provided steady work without the pressure of carrying entire productions. The shift from mainstream Hollywood to what some might consider lesser projects was liberating in unexpected ways. Working on films like Wrapped Up in Christmas and The Good Nanny allowed her to tell stories that centered positive representation of Black families without the compromises that major studio projects often demanded.
Maybe I will take a break from dating during the holidays. Maybe through spring.
These weren't prestigious productions, but they were meaningful to the audiences who watched them. Her advocacy work became as important as her entertainment career. Speaking at universities about education and civic engagement, working with organizations focused on Black maternal health, and using her platform to discuss issues she had studied at Harvard gave her a sense of purpose that acting alone had never provided. She was finally able to integrate her intellectual interests with her public presence.
and it opened up, that experience with my first birth opened up the world of reproductive justice to me, and opened my eyes to the Black maternal health care crisis.
Looking back, her disappearance from mainstream Hollywood wasn't a failure, but a successful escape from a system that would have demanded she remain frozen as Ashley Banks forever. The Harvard education that had cost her career opportunities had given her something more valuable: the intellectual tools to understand why that cost was worth paying. Tatyana Ali had learned that some forms of success require giving up other forms of success, and that choosing authenticity over fame was a trade worth making. She had found peace in the margins, building a life that honored both her entertainment legacy and her intellectual growth. The little girl who had begged for her first audition had grown into a woman who no longer needed anyone else's approval to feel successful. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.